The power clean, Chapter 11. The power clean is a popular variation of the classic clean. It does not require the same degree of length, strength, and it is generally more conducive to speed development. It does have to be used in conjunction with other strength-building movements for optimum results and continued progression. This exercise is a good alternative to the clean when the full squat position cannot be reached. Execution: the get set, first pull, shift, and top pull. These phases are identical to those for the clean and jerk. The catch: immediately after the top pull is performed, the lifter should drop into a quarter to half squat by moving the feet sideways a few centimeters each and rapidly moving the elbows and shoulders forward so that the bar will be supported across the front of the deltoids, with the arms serving as brackets that prevent the bar from falling off the shoulders. The torso musculature should be contracted, and the raking motion of the arms should cease at the same time that the knees stop bending. The recovery from the catch should be deliberate. The hang, variation, the hang. This variation can be performed to below the knee or to above the knee. The hang below the knee is more taxing on the spinal erectors and latissimus dorsi muscles and should be performed with the shoulders slightly in front of the bar's vertical pathway. Power cleaning from the knee can be used to strengthen the back musculature or to improve the shift phase of the movement. The latter variant, above the knees, focuses more on the development of explosive power and requires that the lifter bend forward to the UAP, Universal Athletic Position, before commencing the movement properly. There is an obvious elastic component in this variation. The grip will be developed with both variants, though not to the extent as the hang snatches. Snatch, deadlift, snatch, deadlift. This movement is best used to develop stability of the supportive musculature. Thus, the techniques are similar to the first pull and shift phases of the snatch. Straps aid in securing the grip are frequently used. The movement can be performed either to the knees, through the shift, or with halts, about 3 seconds, and or even ultra-slow descents, about 10 seconds. Several different modes may be employed in a single set. Execution: getting set, the first pull, the shift. These phases correspond to the same phases as in the snatch proper. Most of the value of the movement is completed at the end of the shift phase, when the barbell reaches the upper thigh region. Back squat. The back squat is an exceptional exercise for increasing leg, back, and core strength and affecting anabolic metabolism. Many see the obvious length strengthening features, but overlook the amount of back development necessary to support the requisite weight for developing stronger legs. Execution. unracking, and getting ready. The squat rack needs to be adjusted so that the top of the front lip is lower than the lowest point of the bar, resting on the shoulders of the lifter. Unracking and getting ready. Okay. The lifter needs to face the rack and take a symmetrical grip on the bar. The width is a matter of personal comfort. The lifter should then bend forward, step forward under the bar, and position the bar against the trapezius and shoulders. Inexperienced lifters often place the bar against the top two thoracic vertebrae and experience a great deal of discomfort. The level of pain quickly teaches the lifter to position the bar correctly and develop enough trapezius tissue that it forms a pad to alleviate the discomfort. The lifter can now stand erect, and the bar should clear the squat rack. The lifter can now take the minimum number of skating steps back to begin the squatting movement. Athletes new to lifting need to minimize the amount of energy spent on non-product movements surrounding an exercise. Minimizing the energy spent on the setup is just one example. Minimizing the energy spent on the setup is just one example. The knee should be straight. The squat proper is now ready to commence. Execution of a squat, the descent. The lifter should take a deep breath, which will be held until the most difficult part of the ascent is passed. The lifter then begins the descent in a controlled manner. The resistive force are primarily generated by the gluteus. The descent continues until the full bottom position, when no lower depth is possible, at which point the lifter can then employ the elastic component to initiate the ascent. The execution, the ascent. The lifter, using momentum generated by elastic component, pushes the resistant forward as it goes through the mechanically most disadvantageous point in the pathway. This is generally at a point at or near where the thigh is parallel to the floor. Once this most difficult point is passed, the lifter can exhale. The lifter should then complete the movement, rising to an unlocked knee position, which minimizes stress on the back. The lifter is now ready to begin a second repetition to re-rack the bar, or re-rack the bar. Execution to re-rack. Once the requisite number of reps has been completed, the lifter is now ready to re-rack the bar. If the prescribed minimum number of steps were taken to assume the get set position, the walk back into the rack should be short and accurate. When the bar makes contact with the taller rear lip, the lifter knows the bar is directly over the supporting portion of the rack and merely has to bend the knees to lower the barbell safely into the rack. Spotting. Spotting is the process of assisting a lifter during the course of a set of an exercise, either as a safety measure or to slightly lessen the resistance so the lifter can perform the requisite number of repetitions. Spotting can be performed by a single person in many cases, but must be performed by two or more persons in other circumstances. When two or more persons are spotting, there must be cooperative teamwork taking place in order to avoid asymmetrical assistance or possible injury. A one-person spot of a squat involves the spotter standing directly behind the lifter. The spotter can provide assistance through sticking point, the range of the greatest resistance, mechanical disadvantage, by either squeezing against the hips with both hands from the sides and pushing upwards, or by providing some upward force against the barbell with both hands. Placing each hand lateral to the shifter's shoulders. This disadvantage of a single person spot is that a single individual cannot lift the weight from a failed squat off of the lifter. This disadvantage of a single person spot is that a single individual cannot lift the weight from a failed squat off of the lifter. One person spots can be used on a flat bench press, inclined bench press, lat bar, pull downs, chin ups, and curls. A two-person spot can often be help a two-person spot can often be to help a lifter lower a jerk when jerking blocks are not available. Some of today's lifters raise such heavy weights that the barbells cannot be lowered safely without some assistance. This is the only instance which spotting is employed in training the Olympic lifts. Two-person spots are even more common in the assistance of lifters performing squats in case the lifter cannot attain the prescribed number of squats. The problem with two-person spot is that two spotters must be comparable experience. The problem with two-person spot is that the two spotters must be of comparable experience in order to safely and accurately perform the spot. Familiarity with the trainee's squatting rhythm allows both spotters to know exactly when to offer support and to what degree. An inexperienced spotter can provide too much upward force. An inexperienced spotter can provide too much upward force too soon and cause an injury or an accident that leads to an injury. In extreme cases, a five-person spot can be used on a squat, with two on each side and one in the center in the back. Spotters are a requirement of powerlifting for the bench press and back squat competitions. Spotting is not required in the Olympic lifts and their derivatives. Compensations, possible causes of how to correct them. Trunk flexion and the power clean. In the power clean, the bar is racked on the shoulders and clavicle. A common problem found in this position is the poor posture of trunk flexion. This may be due to inner unit instability or weak trunk extensors. The remedy for trunk flexion during these actions is to actively engage the local and global stabilizers, the stability cues of the pelvic floor, and the abdominal brace, and retract the scapula prior to initiating the movement. If this does not remedy the problem, the weight may simply be too heavy. In this case, the weight should simply be decreased, stabilizers cued, and movement repeated. The thought process should be big chest, elbows high. Thought process should be big chest, elbows high. If a movement cannot be performed technically correct, one should stop the movement, reset, and try again. It is not advised to repeat poor movement patterns, for a neutral spine posture is the best position from which to perform any exercise. Poor posture reduces performance and increases risk of injury. Excessive lumbar extension and anterior pelvic tilt in the overhead position. Excessive lumbar extension in any movement pattern normally causes low back pain. For example, when performing a clean and jerk, and while standing with a bar overhead, it is common to see excessive lumbar extension. This may be due to weak spinal extensors, weak trunk flexors, or both, combined with tight hip flexors. This posture would also put disproportionate stress on the hamstrings as hip extensors. Again, posture away from neutral spine position reduces performance and increase the risk of injury. The first 4 stages of OPT system should address weak spinal extensors, weak trunk flexors, and tight hip flexors. The other way to maintain neutral spinal position and avoid lumbar extension is to use the stability cue. Always cue up to the pelvic floor, obliques, then scapula prior to lifting. Improper knee tracking during squatting movements. When performing traditional squats or movements off the floor, the knee should track appropriately in line with the toes. Excessive knee valgus, especially near knee extension, can increase shear forces to the anterior cruciate ligament, ACL, increasing the risk of injury. Excessive knee valgus can also decrease force production by altering length-tension relationships and force-couple relationships, leading to the further compensation injury.